tell the world, I'll sing the song. It's a better place since you came along. Since you came along. Your touch is sunlight through the trees. Your kisses are the ocean breeze. Everything's alright when you're with me. And you're my favorite thing. Oh, the love that you bring. Well, it feels like I've opened my eyes again, and the colors are golden and bright again. There's a song in my heart, I feel like I belong. It's a better place since you came along. It's a better place since you came along.
Oh, I'm ready. I've never been so sure, quite so steady. I'm gonna live my life to keep the promises I made. Even though I make mistakes, I know I'm ready. I found a heart that was just like mine. Yeah, I found a heart that was just like mine. It's the kind of love that can make you blind. And I'd do anything to see him smile. Oh, I'm ready. I've never been so sure, quite so steady. I'm gonna live my life to keep the promises I made. Even though I make mistakes, I know I'm ready.
Oh, my life is changing every day, in every possible way. And all my dreams, it's never quite as it seems, never quite as it seems.
Family and friends of Linnea and Guillaume, welcome and thank you for joining us on this momentous occasion. We're here to celebrate, together with Linnea and Guillaume and their families, both love and marriage. Let's begin by asking God's blessing on their wedding and their marriage. Let's pray. Father, we ask your blessing on Guillaume and Linnea as they celebrate this momentous occasion in their lives. Grant them contentment and happiness as they establish their home, create a family, and explore the depths of their love for one another and for you. Bless their families and friends and the relationships which have supported, strengthened, and sustained them throughout their lives. Bless their home as a place of love, of acceptance, and of peace. And if times grow hard and tempers grow short, help them to look into their hearts and remember the love that brought them here today. Amen. Marriage is more than uniting two people. It's also joining two families. You may be seated. As we consider the joining of these two families, may I ask the parents of Linnea and Guillaume to stand to symbolize the blessing and support of their families? Christine, do you gladly welcome Linnea as a member of your family and offer her your love and affection? Carl and Barbara, do you gladly welcome Guillaume as a member of your family and offer him your love and affection? Thank you. Please be seated. What a privilege Linnea and Guillaume have afforded us not only to celebrate with them, but to reflect together on what marriage is all about. Marriage is a big deal in the Bible, from beginning to end. Genesis begins with a marriage. Revelation concludes with a wedding celebration. And throughout the Old Testament, God uses marriage as a metaphor to describe his relationship with his people. Then the New Testament refers to God's people as Christ's bride. But Jesus didn't waste a lot of words talking about marriage. He packed almost everything he had to say about marriage into just a very few words. He did it by referring us back to Genesis and then proposing we think about what we read there. In Mark 10, for example, Jesus says, "At the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they're no longer two, but one." Jesus says, in effect, the answers to most of your questions about marriage are to be found in Genesis. Consider, what did God have in mind when it comes to marriage as revealed in Genesis? So that's what I propose we do this afternoon. Consider together as I briefly highlight the way I understand God's agenda for marriage as outlined in Genesis. First, Genesis' description of the context for marriage begins with God observing, "It's not good for a human being to be alone." Now, that was when Adam was already enjoying fellowship with God, and yet God himself observed that a relationship with me is not enough for a human being. He needs another human being, someone with flesh and bones like him. Marriage is about connection with another human being. And then notice how Adam describes Eve when God introduces them a few paragraphs later. Traditionally, it's translated bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, but my paraphrase is, she's flesh and bones just like me. She's just what I needed. God, you knew it all along. This is awesome. She's awesome. Be assured, Guillaume shares those sentiments. God created us to be loved and to love in return, not only in relationship with him, but in relationship with other human beings. And there's no more intimate context in which to experience love and to extend love than a marriage relationship. That's not to say that marriage is for everyone. Jesus himself never married, but Jesus loved deeply. God tells us from the very beginning that we need deep relationships with other human beings. The same God who observed it's not good for human beings to be alone, observed of his finished work with male and female together, it's very good. I'm sure we all share that sentiment today. Linnea and Guillaume, for you to have found one another is something wonderful. Never take your marriage for granted. Never let anyone or anything compete with your marriage partner for the singular place he or she has in your heart and life. Secondly, marriage is to illustrate unity and diversity. Genesis emphasizes that while Adam and Eve shared their common humanity, they were different from one another. God's intention is that marriage illustrate that unity and diversity. God delights in the ways we're different, and delights also in our loving one another and working together, not just when we see things alike, but when we look at things differently. God's intention is that our differences draw us together rather than drive us apart. Linnea and Guillaume, you've already discovered that you're very different people. Beware of letting your differences drive you apart. Instead, let them draw you together in a breathtaking display of unity and diversity. Thirdly, a healthy marriage begins with leaving father and mother. The blessing and support of parents is part of the foundation on which a successful marriage is built. But at the same time, the Bible explains that a successful marriage begins with leaving father and mother to take on adult roles and form a new family. That's an adjustment for both parents and adult children. It's a big adjustment for us parents to acknowledge our children as adult peers. And it's a challenge for adult children to learn to look to their spouse as both their source of support and their first priority. seeking to please their spouse rather than their parents. That's not to say, of course, that we don't care for our parents, only that they take a new place in our constellation of relationships once we're united to a spouse, creating a new family of our own. Carl and Barbara and Christine, embrace the challenge of seeing your children as adult peers whose first priority is caring for and pleasing their spouse. Guillaume and Linnea, embrace the challenge of taking on those new roles, making your spouse your priority. And lastly, marriage is about trust and vulnerability, being seen, being known, and being loved for who we really are. That first couple, says Genesis 2, were naked and yet they felt no shame. There's more than one kind of nakedness. There's more than one kind of intimacy. In fact, that's what we're talking about when we talk about bearing our souls. That degree of intimacy, of vulnerability, can be scary. In fact, just a few verses later, Genesis 3 goes on to describe that first couple's becoming afraid, hiding, and covering up. And yet in Genesis 2, they felt no shame. Why were they unafraid? Because they were confident that they were loved. When we're confident that we're deeply loved for who we really are, we dare to be seen, to be known for who we really are. 1 John says, perfect love casts out fear. That confidence that we're loved for who we really are, warts and all, is not easily come by. It's God's intent that that degree of body and soul intimacy take place in the context of a committed relationship. In fact, a public commitment to a lifetime of faithfulness in a one and only relationship. That's what weddings and wedding vows are all about. It's not a piece of paper that makes the difference. It's a solemn vow, a promise to love for a lifetime, no matter what, that lays a foundation of trust that gives us the courage to be vulnerable. Marriage, according to God's design, is a covenant relationship. To enter into a covenant is to formalize a relationship based on trust. Our reliance on the trustworthiness of the person with whom we enter into that covenant, and our commitment to be worthy of his or her trust. Linnea and Guillaume, for you to exchange wedding vows is to commit yourselves to each other in sacred trust. To commit yourselves to being vulnerable because you trust one another to love unconditionally. So before you exchange vows, I have some important questions for each of you. Guillaume, do you take Linnea to be your wife in the covenant of marriage? Do you promise to make every effort to be united with her, allowing your differences to draw you together rather than drive you apart? To get to know her deeply and to love her fully, and being mindful of her promise to love you, to allow her to get to know you, to trust her with your heart, and to be worthy of her trust.
I do.
Linnea, do you take Guillaume to be your husband in the covenant of marriage? Do you promise to make every effort to be united with him, allowing your differences to draw you together rather than drive you apart, to get to know him deeply and to love him fully, and being mindful of his promise to love you, to allow him to get to know you, to trust him with your heart, and to be worthy of his trust?
I do.
Linnea's and Guillaume's exchanging vows is the heart of today's observance. Their commitments to one another are what wed them. Guillaume, please repeat after me. I, Guillaume, take you, Linnea, to be my wife.
I, Guillaume, take you, Linnea, to be my wife.
I promise to be faithful to you, patient with you, and honest with you.
I promise to be faithful with you, patient with you, and honest with you.
I'll respect you, encourage you, and cherish you.
I'll respect you, encourage you, and cherish you.
I promise to stand beside you through the good times and the bad.
I promise to stand beside you in the good times and the bad.
I give you my hand and my heart from this day forward for all the days of my life.
I give you my hand and my heart from this day forward for all the days in my life.
Linnea, please repeat after me. I, Linnea, take you, Guillaume, to be my husband.
I, Linnea, take you, Guillaume, to be my husband.
I promise to be faithful to you, patient with you, and honest with you.
I promise.
Want to make sure we
Yeah.
get this right. I promise to be faithful to you, patient with you, and honest with you.
I promise to be faithful to you, patient with you, and honest with you.
I will respect you, encourage you, and cherish you.
I will respect you, encourage you, and cherish you.
I promise to stand beside you through the good times and the bad.
I promise to stand beside you through the good times and the bad.
I give you my hand and my heart from this day forward for all the days of my life.
I give you my hand and my heart from this day forward for all the days of my life.
Linnea and Guillaume have chosen to exchange rings as a symbol of the commitments they've made to one another. Guillaume, please repeat after me. I give you this ring
I give you this ring
as a symbol of our marriage
as a symbol of our marriage
and as a token of my faithfulness
and as a token of my faithfulness
as long as we both shall live.
as long as we both shall live.
Linnea, please repeat these words. I give you this ring
I give you this ring
as a symbol of our marriage
as a symbol of our marriage
and as a token of our faithfulness
and as a token of our faithfulness
as long as we both shall live.
as long as we both shall live.
Now that Linnea and Guillaume have given themselves each other by solemn vows and given and received rings as symbols of those commitments, I pronounce that they are husband and wife. Guillaume and Linnea, you may seal your covenant with a kiss. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce for the first time Mr. and Mrs. Guillaume Hart. Linnea and Guillaume would like, and their families would like to invite you to celebrate with them over drinks and hors d'oeuvres under the covered area. The bar is open.
Mr. and Mrs. Guillaume Hart. Well, now I've even got some more good news before we get food. Carl, I understand you have something you'd like to say, sir.
Yes, I would. Thank you. Barbara and I would like to welcome all of you to the celebration of our daughter Linnea's wedding. We're very proud of her and her husband, Guillaume, who we've known for 9 years. We feel strongly that they are meant for each other. We really mean that. Linnea was the first girl born in the Sonnenberg family in many generations. That was special to my father particularly. But that's the first reason she's special. She has many talents. She's artistic. She's a great writer, outgoing, frequently organizing our family. In fact, she did a lot of the organizing of this today along with her mom. And she's also very confident, but in the right way. But she also feels things that happen in life very deeply, whether saying goodbye to a family that was visiting. Some are here today. She would cry. or caring for a pet, the gerbils that were sick, hamsters. But she was the first to cry, but also the first to laugh and the first to smile, and we love her very dearly. 9 years ago, Guillaume started showing up in her life, and we started to get to know him. We observed how they cared for each other from the start, and how they really complemented each other in many ways. And we observed his own self-discipline, his hard work, and his truthfulness. He was always honest. Thank you, Christine, for raising him that way. I really appreciate it. We all do. Eventually, the Linnea and Guillaume thing became more serious, but we were okay with that. And as marriage became discussed, we were totally supportive of their love for one another. Linnea and I were in the room a little bit ago. She said, I'm so happy. And I said, I am too, and we're so happy it's someone we really love that you're marrying. I can't imagine what it would be like if it wasn't, but we didn't have to deal with that. We're very fortunate. So today I ask each one of your wonderful friends and family. We have people here from Iceland, from Japan, Atlanta, I think from Texas maybe, from Seattle, and we ask each of you to continue to support them and love them and pray for them, as Greg said, and Barbara and I will do the same. I don't have a thing to toast with, but we toast. We toast that their marriage be blessed and that their love grows through the years. Cheers.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Linnea's little sister, Eva. You couldn't tell by her looks alone. But I cannot believe that this day is already here. It's been a lot of work, and it's really been a labor of love on everybody's part. But it really only seems like a few years ago that we were playing restaurant, more specifically named Moon Bucks, in our in our backyard, riding our scooters around our cul-de-sac, and that you and Charlotte were so lovingly convincing me to eat chalk and mud brownies. Even if there were times that I didn't show it, and I'm sure there were several, I'm so incredibly lucky to have you as my sister. You've been such a true constant for me. Even when I was thousands of miles away in Arizona, you always dropped everything when I was stressed or overwhelmed or homesick. You love the people in your life so fiercely, fully, and freely. Sorry. You're there for anyone at the drop of a hat, and you never expect anything in return. And I cannot wait to see how you and Guillaume's love for each other grows. Guillaume, thank you for loving Linnea, complimenting her in every way, and choosing her every single day. Thank you for never making me feel like a third wheel, because I'm sure I've been a third wheel millions of times. I can't think of anyone better for her or anyone better to join our family. I think that I speak for everybody in the Sonnenberg clan when I say that we are so honored and so happy to have you in our family forever. So, here's to Linnea and Guillaume, and a future of love and happiness. I love you guys so much.
So I am Linnea's other younger sister, Charlotte. And if you didn't know us when we were younger, we were inseparable, but we could not have been more different. I was sometimes a little shy and unsure of things, while Linnea was extremely confident and just ready for life, always looking for the next adventure. She has always known exactly who she is and has always unapologetically been herself, bright, happy, and with the love of life that can be shown throughout the ways that she loves others. She's always been there for me. And the thing I love the most about you is that without a doubt,
You'll be there for me no matter what, and you're ready to help in any way you can, no matter what's going on in your life. I have asked you so much of you, and you've always been ready to help. This week, especially with my resume, I've asked her consistently for help, and she has. As you got older, I remember thinking it would take just the right man to compliment you in your untamable joy. And sure, Guillaume. He may be quiet, but he is a thoughtful man who has clicked with Linnea from the very, very beginning. And over the years, you have truly grown into an incredible team. And I cannot think of anyone better for Linnea. And I cannot wait for you to be a part of our family officially, which you now are. It's very exciting. I love you both so, so much. And your cat, Missy, too. But mostly you guys. So let's toast to them and the rest of their lives.
Thank you guys all for coming tonight. Thank you, especially Table 6. Thank you. I feel safe in saying, well, I can only speak for myself, but I feel safe in saying that, thank you, that our beautiful bride and this man with the very fresh haircut sitting next to her are all very thankful that you guys are here. Most of us can all remember first meeting Guillaume and Linnea, not only for their benevolence and their spirit, but because we had to ask them multiple times how to pronounce their names. So I'm sorry, Christine, but I might fudge his name a little up. I'm still having trouble with it. I first met Guillaume in our graduate school seminar. I spent about 3 weeks stage whispering questions about our lecture into his ear before he actually noticed me. And it wasn't until I wore a shirt with his favorite dog on it that he actually turned and faced me. But after accepting me as a human being, he introduced me to his girlfriend, Linnea, whose kindness is only matched by Guillaume's obliviousness. And I knew I had 2 friends for life. Between playing spike ball at Green Lake or heckling opposing teams at Mariners games, you guys finally accepted me into your wolf pack. I'm very thankful for that. In January, we planned a trip to Hawaii, and about 2 weeks before we left, Guillaume told me that was where he was going to propose. So what was a leisurely paradise vacation soon became a personal stress fest for me, as I was in charge of keeping track of his engagement ring in an island full of sand. But on the 4th day of the trip, Guillaume walked into my room, just looked me dead in the eye, and he was like, "I'm doing it." I never had to ask if he had any doubt. I could tell he had a butterfly or two, but I knew he was ready, and he was about to marry his dream girl. I know it's hard for me to go, and you guys know it's hard for me to go more than like 30 seconds without trying to crack a joke. Trying being the operative word. But I'm very serious in saying that I feel very lucky that you guys have come to my life. It's doing so well. You bring a radiance and a light into everybody's lives and everybody out here's lives. And I feel very lucky that to have you guys here. Being able to share this day with you and this weekend with you has really meant a lot to me. We're all so excited for your next chapter of your life, and I'll be with you every step of the way if and when you want me there. But yeah, to Linnea and Guillaume. All right.
Uh-oh. What's this?
I just wanted to thank everyone so much for being here. We're so lucky to be surrounded by such loving friends and family, and we're just so happy right now, and we really hope you enjoy the rest of your night, and just let's keep the party going.
Well, Guillaume, don't get comfortable. Take your beautiful bride.